A beloved father of two is slain outside his home.
They were waiting for him.
He walked out, he never came back.
Police have to kind of be scratching their heads because it wasn't the kind of thing where Tito had a lot of money, that he was robbed.
But Lieutenant Joe Kenda soon learns this hardworking man
Tell you how beautiful you look tonight.
was harboring some explosive secrets.
He had a reputation as a ladies' man.
We're looking for someone.
Tito's parents tell police, well, you need to look into the crowbar incident.
People always say that these things are a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. You are never certain when gunfire might begin. Any second, or maybe never, but you have to be prepared for that possibility.
It's the middle of the night. Officer Carey's patrolling the Stratton Meadows area.
Though so far it's been a quiet night, due to a recent spike in gang violence, patrolmen like Peter Carey are on high alert.
Well, right away, as a police officer, you also have to be very cautious because you don't know what you're coming up on.
And in a cul-de-sac on the south side of town, Officer Carey's night takes a dramatic turn.
And he notices in the shadows what looks to be a man bent over.
Hey, stop right there. Right there. Stop right there.
And he sees the figure look at him.
There are occasions when I could not sleep. I'm awake. I haven't been to sleep. When I would get up and walk around the house quietly, no lights on, look out the windows, just to maybe help me relax a little bit so I could go to sleep.
Miss Kenda. Stratton Meadows? Okay. Let's get Detective Anderson on the scene. He knows that neighborhood.
At that time, I was a sergeant, so it was my job to assign detectives to the case.
Ought to be there soon.
I wrote a note to Kathy telling her where I went, and I took off. It's a working class area, a relatively low rent area at the time. A lot of older buildings near active railroad tracks, that kind of a neighborhood.
Hey, good morning, Sergeant.
Anderson? So what we got?
Gunshot victim.
I was notified by Joe Kenda to come to the scene that I'd be in charge of doing the crime scene investigation. When I arrived, the victim had already been transported to the hospital, and he had been shot once in the head.
Currently in critical condition. Doesn't appear he's gonna make it.
Any idea on him?
Yeah, his name is Kenneth Valdez. Seems like the neighbors know him as Tito.
Tito and I were pretty close. He's my first cousin, and people respected him.
Do we have any leads yet?
First officer here, Officer Carey, detained a witness named Harold Ayers. We don't think he's involved in the shooting, though.
Want to take me where they found the body?
Sure, right down here.
He says Tito also has a common-law wife that they've had children together, and her name is Alberta. And he points at an older pickup truck and says that's Tito's truck, and he lives in this area. We walk over to the spot where Tito's body was. There's a little bit of blood on the asphalt and a set of keys, probably Tito's.
It's kind of late for a stroll around the block. Maybe he's headed home.
He is exposed. He's apparently on foot in this area when he takes a gunshot wound to the forehead. How did he come to be here?
Officer Carey says he thinks that the head wound was caused by a large caliber weapon. We can't find any shell casings.
Yeah. Take a look at those skid marks.
I see acceleration skid marks in the street. So that says to me that whoever did this is probably in that car. And those acceleration marks are in flight after the shot is fired. How many people in this car, we don't know. At any rate, the car is most likely involved in this.
Let's go talk to the witness. Is that him over there?
Yeah, it's
We were fortunate that the reporting party was still there, so I was able to talk to Mr. Ayers about what he had seen, what he had heard.
Mr. Ayers, how did you know Mr. Valdez?
The guy that got shot? Actually, I don't know him. I just live on this block with my wife. We were out this morning when everything happened.
He said they were taking a road trip, and he wanted to make sure that they got an early start before traffic. They were loading up the car with their suitcases.
Hey, can you go grab the cooler when you go back inside?
Oh, sure. Hey, do we need more ice?
I think we're okay.
I heard car tires screeching, so I looked up and I see this dark red sedan peeling out.
Then he goes over to see what happened and finds our victim.
Luckily, one of your officers was driving around in the area, although I think he thought I shot him, so we're gonna sort that out.
See any details on the vehicle? License plate number?
I didn't catch the number, but I'm pretty sure it had California plates.
And what was interesting is Officer Carey reported seeing that same vehicle leaving the area.
So we know that we're looking for a sedan. And even if you can't get the license plate number, if you can get the state, especially an out-of-state license plate, that's very helpful.
Did you see anyone in the car?
It was dark, but it was just the driver, I'm sure. He was wearing a ball cap, and I couldn't get a good look.
I'm gonna put out a bolo on the suspect vehicle.
All right, thanks.
Hey, I hate to be such a bother, but we really need to get going.
Thank you for the information. I hope you can still enjoy your trip.
He's got a good attitude, but he's told this story now 2 or 3 times to 2 or 3 different policemen. He's still concerned about getting to his destination, which is perfectly understandable.
With little to go on, Kenda and Anderson decide to speak with the victim's common-law wife, Alberta Gonzalez.
I'm sorry. I'm just so shocked right now.
She is incredibly distraught, shocked, crying. Her demeanor and the way she presents is a clear indicator she has no knowledge of this or no involvement in it.
He had a nice wife, my cousin Alberta. She was good to him.
I'm sorry, Alberta. Do you know what Tito was doing up at this late hour?
Yeah, he was doing someone a favor.
She said he was helping friends move into an apartment.
He called me and said that it turned into a little party to celebrate the move. No big deal. He came home a little after 2.
And told her as he came in the door, he realized that his tools and his work equipment was at his father's house.
He was supposed to work in the morning, so he was gonna drive over to his dad's house and get the tools and come right back. But he didn't even make it to his truck.
He walked out, he never came back. So we now know he was walking to his truck when somebody interrupted that with a bullet.
Can you tell us about these friends that Tito was helping to move?
Jose and Galena Torres, they just moved down the block.
Shortly after sunrise, the detectives head to the Torres residence.
It's really important to get as much information as you can as soon as you possibly can. So in this case, we felt it was important to wake a number of people up to find out who was at the party.
something wrong?
Galena, what's going on? When you talked about your friend, Tito Valdez.
Is he okay?
I'm afraid we have some very bad news.
They were very, very surprised that Tito Valdez had been shot and that he was hospitalized.
There's a strong chance he won't make it.
Oh my God, he was just here.
Khalifas.
Was it?
This was Khalifas.
They were soldiers from California, hardcore gang members that were serviced in the Army here in Fort Carson.
They are an association of friends who call themselves a gang to protect each other from insult and name-calling. They defend their honor at all costs.
You should come inside.
Now, this is a major problem. If we're dealing with gangs, there may be a lot more body bags before this is over. We have Tito Valdez shot in the forehead. We're trying to determine if that motive lies somewhere in the gang world and is connected to the car with California plates.
Right away, they're thinking, was Tito somehow involved in a gang? Was this a drive-by shooting?
You can have a seat there.
So Tito's having issues with Khalifas?
No, not Tito. But we had a little party last night, and some of our friends are in Los Meadows Burritos.
He said his associates belong to Los Barrios, which is a neighborhood Hispanic gang in this area. These people are not in the drug business. They don't do contract homicides. They don't do anything that gangs do.
Stratton Meadows neighborhood was claimed as a gang. We were never a gang. We were one big family. And we stuck together, and we took care of our neighborhood.
So, wait, Tito's not involved in Los Meadows Barrios?
Right. He's just friends with everyone.
That was a little bit of a surprise to me, since that's where Tito and his family and his friends all grew up.
I think this could have anything to do with the Asplin shooting. You know that trial's going on right now.
Yeah, man. Everyone's been on edge around here. Chris Romero was actually here tonight with Tito. They're best friends.
We had a shooting in the recent past where two members of the Khalifas had shot a member of Los Meadows Barrios, a Mr. Chris Romero.
He survives it, but there's a lot of hostility within both those gangs.
That case was investigated. Two Khalifas were arrested and are charged with attempted first-degree murder.
You know, it's a miracle Chris is alive. You know, I told him to keep his head down until this whole trial thing is over with.
So why don't you walk us through what happened tonight?
Well, we just moved in yesterday, and it just turned into a little party. Yeah, having a good time, though. Just
Hey, there's nothing left in here.
Well, what time is it? We go pick some more up. You guys want to get some more? Yeah, that'd be great.
The party giver says that around 10 o'clock, Tito and two friends named Chris and Ron collect money from the crowd, and they make a beer run.
So did they come back with the beer?
I think so, but I don't know. We were in the other room, but I don't know what happened to Tito.
Well, obviously, Chris and Ron do. What if they went out and encountered the Khalifas at the liquor store? Now, are they angry about their people going to jail?
Does Ron have a last name?
Castro.
All right. Thank you very much.
So, please give us a call if you hear anything else.
So now we need to find Chris and Ron and find what they have to say about this beer run.
Fortunately, Detective Anderson already knows where Chris Romero lives.
Hey, where you headed at this hour?
Detectives, I'm on my way to work. What you guys doing here? What's up?
My detectives established rapport in this neighborhood, and Anderson had established a relationship with him to where they could get information when other officers couldn't.
Hey, this is Sergeant Kenda. We're working a shooting that just happened. Your friend Tito got shot. We're thinking of drive-by.
What? Who did this to him?
We don't know. That's why we need your help.
Hey, I heard you and Tito were at a party last night. Did you guys get in any trouble?
No, man, not when I was with them. I had to go to work early, so Ron and Tito picked me up, and then they dropped me off back at the house. I don't know what happened after that.
Chris seemed entirely believable. We will check his alibi, but for our purposes, I really don't think he knows what happened to his friend.
All right, we'll let you get to work. Sorry about your friend.
Yeah.
Hey, call me if you hear anything.
I will, man.
As we're leaving,
Hey, Anderson.
he says he saw a strange car cruising the neighborhood the last couple of days.
You guys looking for the same car?
And what it look like?
Red sedan, California plates. They were definitely looking for someone.
People always say that these things are a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences.
So that sent up signals that perhaps there was some connection for this shooting with Tito.
What the guy look like?
Had a cap on, probably a white guy.
All right, thanks for the help.
Thanks.
Now, who is that guy? And who is he looking for? And what motivates him to be in this neighborhood? Is this part of our shooting? It certainly could be.
Hoping to get a statement from the victim, Kenda and Anderson head to St. Francis Hospital.
Excuse me. Can you tell me the status of one of your patients, Kenneth Tito Valdez?
Sure. It doesn't look like there's much we can do for him.
Tito's condition is extremely critical. The bullet enters his forehead, goes through the center of his brain, and stops at the back of his skull.
He's lost all brain function, and so it's just a matter of time before they pronounce him.
Is his family here?
Yeah, they're right back there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Our next move was to see who we could talk to there. We knew that Tito's parents and his sister were there. We talked to his father.
Mr. Valdez, we were so sorry about your son.
We need to ask you a few questions.
I said, we are here to find out who hurt your son. That's what we're here for. You can help us with that to get to the bottom of this.
We will do anything to help.
Was your son having any problems with anyone recently?
Actually, I know who did this to my son. He tried to kill him already.
He said the guy stabbed him with a crowbar.
Really?
Well, now, did he trade his crowbar for a gun? We're investigating the shooting of Kenneth Valdez, who is known as Tito. He's not expected to survive, and we just learned that someone tried to kill him in the past by stabbing him with a crowbar.
Can you tell us about this stabbing incident?
Tito was leaving a party over in Deerfield Hills when it happened.
Hey, what you looking at, man?
That was good. Nothing, man.
Nah, you looking at something, man. What you looking at, huh?
I said I ain't looking at nothing. Yo, it's okay.
They never really knew why it happened, why this person picked him.
He got away from them, but he spent a week in the hospital.
Do you know this guy's name?
No one knows. You should talk to your friends on the force. It was never solved.
When did this occur?
It was a little over a year ago.
Since the police weren't able to track down who that suspect was that attacked Tito, doing it now was going to be equally challenging.
Unfortunately, it happened so long ago, I think it's unlikely to be connected to our shooting.
Well, thank you for the information. We'll be in touch.
We're sorry about your son, Mr. Valdez.
With little to go on, detectives believe their best chance at moving the investigation forward is by locating Tito's friends.
Here's the files you asked for.
Thanks. Any word on around Castro's whereabouts?
Not yet. The team is out trying to locate him. Word is moves around a lot.
Ron Castro is another person that left the housewarming party with Tito, and so police want to track him down as well to find out what's going on.
In the meantime, we're trying to see what we can find out about that car that was seen leaving the crime scene.
Excuse me, Sergeant. We've got someone who wants to talk to you about the Valdez case, a Ron Castro.
Wow, that was fast.
See what he has to say.
Thank you.
Castro was no stranger to the police department, so he came in.
Heard you wanted to see me? Look, I didn't do anything. Okay, I was just with Tito buying some beer.
Well, we're not accusing you of doing anything. We're just trying to find out who did this to your friend. Why don't you walk us through what happened at the party?
It was a pretty low-key party. We ran out of beer. And so me and Tito went out to get some beer at the liquor store. Yo, we're here.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
They met a couple girls that they kind of casually know. So they come back with beer and 2 girls who are now at the party. Tito, as it turns out, had a reputation as a ladies' man. He wasn't particularly loyal to his common-law wife.
Come on, Tino, make me a drink.
You got it, babe.
According to Ron Castro, though the 2 girls were friendly and flirtatious, they often ran with a crowd that wouldn't be welcome at a Los Barrios get-together.
He thinks that possibly this could be something involving jealousy and gang members.
And they were loosely affiliated with the rival gang, the Khalifas. One drew our attention immediately. Her name's Gata, that is Spanish for cat, and she had a bit of a reputation for sleeping around with members of both gangs.
Tell you how beautiful you look tonight?
Yeah, tell me again.
So he's all over Gata, and they're having a good time. So what is Tito unwittingly doing? He is playing with a grenade with the pin almost out.
Yeah, those barrios know how to throw a good party. What?
And then a little bit later, I heard Gata arguing with somebody over the phone.
Well, you didn't want to take me out. So what was I supposed to do? Stay home?
She's talking to somebody from the Khalifas because he hears her say that. So what is Gata doing? Stirring the pot with a radioactive spoon. That's what she's doing. She's playing this game.
Just stop, okay? No, I'm not leaving. Stop.
And then she got off the phone and went to go look for Tito.
Ron also tells us that Tito leaves with Gata for about 20 minutes. When Tito comes back, he says that he had sex with Gata.
But here's the thing. When them 2 snuck up to fool around, these 2 guys showed up, looking for her.
One is a white male, the other is a Hispanic male, and he's never seen either one of them before.
Hey, can I help you?
We're looking for someone.
She goes by Gata. She's a pretty little thing. You seen her?
Oh, yeah, she just left with Tito.
Where'd they go?
They didn't say.
Hey, bro, let's get out of here. And just like that, they took off.
Now we have to find out if there's a jealous lover who's now after Tito for being with his girlfriend.
Where can we find this woman?
Give me the pen. She's not really that hard to find.
So finding her and finding out through her who these 2 guys were, that becomes very important.
Yeah? What do you want?
Sergeant Kenda, Detective Anderson. We're looking for Gata.
That's me.
She's a beautiful girl, but you can tell she partied hard the night before.
We need to talk to you about Tito Valdez.
Okay, what?
We heard you were at a Los Barrios party with Tito last night.
No. Who said that? I was with my roommate at a bar last night.
So you do or you don't know Tito Valdez?
I know Tito, I just wasn't with him last night.
She denies leaving the party in his company.
Frankly, I don't care who you did or didn't leave with. We're looking for 2 guys we think you know.
We want to know, who is it that you called from the party? Was it your boyfriend? Were you trying to make him jealous?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. I actually don't remember much from last night. Maria! I wasn't messing with Tito last night, was I?
Oh, you did. You lived to party with him.
Wow. I don't remember. He must have been pretty drunk.
It's believable that she is that drunk. They drink every day, and they drink to excess every day. So we're not getting anywhere with these girls when all of a sudden my radio goes off.
Kenda?
Excuse me. Go for Kenda.
Sergeant, patrol has eyes on a dark red four-door sedan with California tags and a white male driver.
They report that he has found a vehicle matching description in the area of the shooting.
They're going to make contact and are requesting backup.
10-4, we're on the way. Kenda out. All right, we gotta go. Thanks for the information. We'll be in touch.
While Kenda and Anderson race to the scene, Officer Everett Purdue and his partner are preparing to make contact with the driver.
Hey, keep your hands where I can see them.
You have no idea who this person is or what he's capable of. You take no chances. We're investigating the shooting of Tito Valdez, who is not going to survive. Patrol officers have stopped a car with California plates that match the suspect description. They're going to approach the driver with extreme caution.
We were very interested in finding out who that person was and what evidence might be in that vehicle.
Is there anything I can do for you today, officer?
Yes, sir. I need you to step out of the vehicle and keep your hands right where I can see them.
He's very calm. That's pretty unusual.
Step right back here.
I run a red light or something?
No, your vehicle matches the description of a vehicle used in a shooting last night. Do you have any ID on you?
It's in my pocket. You mind?
Go ahead and get it. Step over here with my partner. Sir, stand right here.
He has not one driver's license, but two, and they're both in different names with his picture on them.
How is it that you have two state IDs? One says that you're Raymond Oland and one says that you're Raymond Parker? How does that work? I need you to put your hands on the car, sir.
That's a major red flag. People who have different identifications are usually fugitives from justice.
Do you have any weapons in the car or on your person that we need to know about?
No.
He looks in the floorboard front passenger side. He sees 3 or 4 large jars stuffed full of coins. Then he looks in the back seat.
You got a gun. Hey, go ahead and hook him.
And they did see in plain view in the back seat a short-barreled black revolver.
Minutes later, Kenda and Anderson arrive on the scene.
I've got a suspect in my car. The gun's still in his car and nobody's touched it.
All right, thank you.
When I get there, I look at this gun.
Yeah, looks like one round's been fired.
It's a 5-shot, 38 caliber revolver with a 2-inch barrel.
When we recover the bullet from the victim, we'll be able to see if they match up.
I am totally convinced that one shot is in Tito Valdez's forehead from our man with 2 driver's licenses.
I'll go ahead and bag that for me. Yes, sir. See what he has to say.
He's sitting in the back in handcuffs. He's still very calm.
So I got a quick question for you.
Okay.
What's the penalty in this state for felony assault?
It's pretty serious.
So what's going to happen to my car?
Well, it's going to be impounded.
You're going to need to write a receipt for me then.
A receipt? For what?
He also makes a point to say that there's money in that car. Lots of money in his estimation.
You mean the coins?
Yeah, well, that all adds up, doesn't it?
You're under arrest for the attempted first-degree murder of Tito Valdez.
Yeah. I'm going to need all that money now, aren't I?
You know you have the right to remain silent. You want to talk to us?
No. I want my attorney.
Well, all right then. It's as if he's confessing to this without doing so.
All right, get him out of here.
He's a very experienced criminal, and we don't scare him, and the system doesn't scare him either.
While Ray Parker, a.k.a. Ray Oland, is brought down to the station to be booked, Kenda heads back to his office to review the case.
I don't believe that Mr. Parker was driving down the street and selected Tito Valdez as the only pedestrian and shot him. We need to learn what the connection is between Parker, the gun, the money in the car, the Khalifas, and Tito Valdez.
Kenda.
Dispatch informed me on the phone Tito Valdez is pronounced dead from a gunshot wound to the head.
And it's tragic because he was a young man with 2 children. He had loving family members, his parents, his sister, and his death touched a lot of people in that community, and it's a tragic loss.
Well, we officially have a homicide on our hands. Parker's facing a first-degree murder charge.
His body's transferred to the El Paso County morgue, where we will recover the bullet, which is still in his head, and compare it to the weapon we found in Parker's back seat.
I looked into that gun. It's got an interesting history, actually.
How so?
Seems it was taken in a burglary about 10 years ago.
It turns out that the weapon might have been part of an insurance fraud.
Did you find anything in his background check?
Yeah, a few things.
We checked with California. He has a criminal history, but it's not that serious. He has a wife, but he's left her.
We're still trying to locate her. He's down in processing.
All right, let's get his mugshot into a photo lineup and circulate it to all the people who were at the house party and to Tito's family. Now, maybe that'll jog her memory.
Got it.
Police have to establish some kind of connection between Parker and Tito. And one of the things they have to figure out is this a premeditated murder?
Nobody seems to know who Raymond Parker is. He's not a member of the Khalifas, as far as anybody knows.
Jose, you recognize anybody on there?
Nah. No one from Los Barrios or Khalifas.
Did anybody on that sheet show up at your house party looking for Gata?
Gata? I remember 2 guys were looking for her, but no. Neither guy is on here.
What about this guy? You recognize him?
Never saw him in my life.
All right, well, thank you.
As far as we can tell, he had nothing to do with Gata. There was no earlier connection that we were aware of with Tito.
The next day, Kenda and Anderson switch gears and delve into Ray Parker's background.
We determined that Mr. Parker was employed as a short-order cook at a restaurant in Colorado Springs. We go to this restaurant.
So what do you want to know about Ray?
We identify his best friend in the restaurant is another cook by the name of David Gillespie.
He's only been in the Springs a few months. We share an apartment together.
Well, what kind of guy is he?
Quiet, does his job, good worker.
Did you ever know him to carry a gun?
I mean, he's never talked about owning one. Do you mind if I smoke?
Go ahead. You ever mention any problems with Kenneth Valdez? Goes by Tito?
Doesn't ring any bells. I know he had problems with some guy in California.
David says, well, Ray Parker had recently separated from his wife. He caught her in bed with another man.
Got real broken up about it. Left her, moved here, but he never mentioned anything about Tito.
I'm looking at this guy, and I can tell he's holding back on me. Now, why is that?
David, I can tell that you're not telling us something.
I'm being straight with you.
Don't waste our time.
Damn it. Someone broke into our apartment, robbed my bedroom.
One of the key pieces of information we learned is that David, the co-worker, did have a gun, and that gun had been stolen.
It was a .38 special.
Why didn't you report the burglary?
I couldn't. I didn't legally own the gun.
So he was afraid if he admitted he was in possession of a stolen firearm, that would arrest him.
We were able to confirm that the gun originally was stolen so many years ago that the statute of limitations had run its course.
Was anything else missing?
I had a bunch of money gone. I've been saving up change for months. All gone. I had some cassettes missing, too.
Well, we know where they are now, don't we? They're in Mr. Parker's car. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to connect that event.
Kenda and Anderson believe Ray Parker stole the money, cassettes, and .38 special from David Gillespie and staged the theft to look like a break-in. The million-dollar question, though, is how is this incident connected to the murder of Tito Valdez? And what could possibly be Ray Parker's motive?
So any updates on the Valdez case?
Yeah, ballistics says that slug they pulled out of Valdez matched it back to Parker's gun.
Great. Did you find any connections between them?
Nothing yet, but I've got my CIs working on it right now.
We still have some ghosts in this thing. We're still not exactly sure why he did this.
Hey, as a matter of fact, that's one of my guys now. You feel like taking a trip? This guy's solid.
Yeah, let's go.
A few minutes later, Kenda and Anderson arrive at the back of the strip mall, not far from the Stratton Meadows neighborhood.
Law enforcement have for years used confidential informants, we refer to them as CIs, to solicit information without disclosing who these people are.
Hey, thanks for getting back with me.
Yeah, well, I like Tito. It's a shame he died for nothing.
So what's up? What do we know?
You know Ron Castro, right? Word on the street is this is all his fault.
He's saying Ron Castro, Tito Valdez's good friend, is mixed up in all of this. He conveniently forgot to say that the last time we spoke. Well, my. We've arrested a man named Ray Parker for the murder of Tito Valdez, but we've been unable to determine a motive or how they were connected until now. A CI has informed us that Tito Valdez's good friend, Ron Castro, may be the missing link.
Ron Castro? What's he got to do with this?
He's been selling drugs.
Was Tito helping him?
That's the thing. He didn't have anything to do with the drugs. He was just Ron's friend.
All right. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
According to the informant, the trouble started a few days earlier when Tito was driving Ron home.
Tito was kind of a go-along guy. He went along with the Los Meadows Barrios, and that got him in some level of jam more than once.
You mind making a quick stop? Yeah, man. What you got going on? Nothing. Just gotta take care of something quick.
Ron sells cocaine that's been doctored to the max. There's some cocaine in it, but very little. So Castro's making a living selling bunk junk on the street.
Pull up to that car right there. Right there? Yeah, that's good. Maybe this won't take long. Hurry up.
The informant explains that although Ray Parker hadn't been in town long, he'd quickly become one of Ron Castro's regular customers.
What's up, my man? What can I do for you? Is he cool?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
You got stuff?
Yeah. All right, okay. All right, man.
And he sells some to Ray Parker, and when he made that sale, Tito Valdez was with Castro. He was not an active participant in the sale, but he was with them.
Hurry up, let's go. Hey, look, I don't want to be around when you're doing this again.
Let's go.
I'm being serious. It won't happen again. Let's go. Come on.
It was probably dangerous for all of us to know Ron because the guy didn't care what he took from anybody.
Detectives surmise that while Tito drove Ron home, Ray Parker tested out the product.
He's a short-order cook in a restaurant. He doesn't have a lot of money. He recently left his wife, and he's using drugs to soothe his pain of his troubled luck.
Oh! Oh! Damn, that burns! Oh.
He spends his hard-earned money for what he believes is cocaine, and it turns out it isn't.
Oh. Damn it.
Then he is furious. He wants to take revenge.
And he knew his roommate David had a gun.
In this case, we have a guy, Mr. Parker, who is a criminal. He does what he wants. He wants a gun, he takes it. He wants that money, he takes that. He takes the cassette tapes as well.
Investigators suspect that after robbing his roommate, Ray Parker cruised around Stratton Meadows looking for Ron and Tito and recognized Tito's truck from the drug deal.
It was almost like it was casing the neighborhood. So he was waiting for him when he walked outside.
And it just so happened that Tito had forgotten his tools for a job the next day and had to run out and get them.
There you are, you bastard.
Hey, man.
Hey, do I know you?
This was really a senseless murder. It didn't have to happen.
And it's an absolute waste of a life over something he didn't even do.
They took my friend, man, you know. They took Tito from me, man, you know. It hurt me bad, man.
A single streetlight flickers over the cul-de-sac, casting long, trembling shadows across the cracked asphalt, and for a moment it feels like the night itself is holding its breath, waiting for someone to speak the truth. It swallowed 40 years ago. The truth begins here, in a quiet Florida neighborhood where the humidity sticks to everything: skin, memory, guilt, and where a young woman vanished on a summer night that should have passed like any other. Instead, it carved a wound that never healed, a cold case whispered about in backyards, church pews, and late-shift diners long after her name slipped from headlines. Her disappearance became a stain nobody could wash out, a question that kept circling back like a storm that refused to move offshore. And tonight, as investigators reopen the dusty files and uncover a life built on lies right across the street, that storm finally breaks. It starts with the house at the end of Willow Lane, the one with the peeling turquoise shutters and the overgrown hibiscus swallowing the fence. In 1985, it looked ordinary, almost painfully so. The kind of place where nothing dramatic should happen, where families barbecue on Saturdays and kids ride bikes in looping figure eights until sunset. But behind one of those windows lived the last person known to have seen 19-year-old Marla Dawn alive. She stepped out for a 10-minute walk, told her mother she'd be right back, and vanished into the humid darkness without leaving a single footprint, a dropped purse, a ripped thread. Just absence, just silence. And in a neighborhood where everyone believed they knew everyone else, her vanishing hit like a lightning strike, splitting a tree in half. Sudden, violent, unforgettable. Residents spilled into the streets that night, flashlights sweeping through palmetto scrubs and retention ponds, calling her name until their voices broke. Deputies combed the shallow canals, the abandoned sheds, the citrus groves that stretched for miles. Helicopters thudded over rooftops. Dogs tracked scents that faded too quickly, as if the trail were swallowed by the heavy summer air. Nothing. No struggle, no witness, no clue beyond a single neighbor who said he saw her walk past his driveway before rounding the corner. A neighbor described as friendly but quiet, the sort nobody remembers until they have to. His name barely made the reports, just a line in a stack of statements the detectives would later call frustratingly clean. And so the case froze. Tapes were boxed, notes yellowed. Marla's photo, sun-bleached smile, wind-swept hair, faded in the sheriff's hallway. Neighbors moved, streets changed, new families arrived, unaware that the land beneath their feet held a story that refused to rest. The unsolved mystery became a ghost of the neighborhood, always felt, seldom spoken, a reminder that even in a peaceful suburb, darkness can be patient. But decades later, everything shifts again when a routine property cleanup, just a crew clearing a foreclosed house for resale, uncovers something wedged deep under a loose floorboard. A small metal locket, rusted but still recognizable, engraved with initials nobody on the cleanup crew recognized. a locket identical to the one Marla wore in every picture her mother ever kept. Suddenly the clock resets, and the silence that held this case hostage cracks open like an eggshell. Detectives swarm the house, surprised to find its records tangled like vines. Previous owners who stayed only months, tenants who paid in cash, landlords who left no forwarding address. But it's the earliest entries that matter, the names tied to the year Marla disappeared. They find one. The neighbor who gave that brief, almost forgettable statement in 1983. A neighbor whose life, once re-examined, begins to look less like quiet normalcy and more like a carefully constructed mask. Yet before investigators even reach that revelation, the voiceover of this story pulls us back to the original neighborhood, back to the heavy stillness of Willow Lane in the weeks following Marla's disappearance. Residents began living behind locked doors. Porch lights stayed on all night. Parents kept their children close. Fear seeped into everyday conversation, fear of the unknown, fear of what might be lurking just outside the circle of light. Rumors brewed like summer storms, a drifter passing through town, a jealous ex-boyfriend, a hidden trail someone didn't want uncovered. Each theory more frantic than the last, each one unraveling under scrutiny. The truth remained elusive. Marla's mother, Evelyn, taped her daughter's photo to the inside of her car window so she'd see it every time she drove. She became the story you read about even years later, the parent who refused to quit searching, who kept the porch lamp burning as if it were a lighthouse calling a lost ship home. She organized search crews, hired private investigators when the sheriff's office resources dried up, and stood on local television pleading for anyone to come forward. Some nights, neighbors swore they saw her walking the edge of the retention pond with a flashlight long after midnight, her silhouette trembling in the breeze like a fragile shadow. People whispered that grief was turning her into a ghost of her own. But even grief settles eventually. The neighborhood moved forward. Birthdays, graduations, yard sales, new coats of paint over old fears. Yet the cold case file remained untouched for years, waiting for an opening, waiting for something to force the past into the present. And that something arrives not with a confession or a miraculous witness, but with that locket hidden under a rotting floorboard in a house 30 miles north of the original crime scene. Word spreads quickly. The sheriff's office confirms the find, but releases nothing more. Reporters swarm like gulls at a fishing pier, hoping for scraps of information. Residents of Willow Lane wake to news vans parked beside the same street they once searched in desperation. Old wounds break open. Memories long buried rise like ghosts. And once again, everything circles back to that house, with the turquoise shutters and the neighbor who claimed Marla walked past his driveway before disappearing. Detectives reopen the statements, hunting for inconsistencies. They re-interview surviving neighbors, now older, voices roughened with time. Some remember the man vaguely, a loner, polite but distant, the kind of person who waved but rarely talked. Others recall odd details that never seemed important until now. Curtains always closed, late-night noises, lights flickering at strange hours. One neighbor mentioned seeing him carrying heavy trash bags to his car the morning after Marla vanished. Another swears she heard a scream that night, though she convinced herself it was a fox or a neighborhood kid. All these fragments, once dismissed, now feel like pieces of a puzzle that might finally fit. Still, the voice of the investigation narrows in on the most crucial question. Why was Marla's locket in a house miles away, tucked beneath a floorboard untouched for decades? And who lived there at the time it was hidden? Records lead back to a rented property linked to the same neighbor who once lived across from her. A man who left Willow Lane abruptly 6 months after the disappearance, claiming a job relocation. A man whose background, when scrutinized, reveals gaps wide enough to swallow the truth whole. Investigators track down old employment files, property leases, financial transactions that blur and disappear. Each discovery raises more questions. Why did he use multiple mailing addresses? Why did he change jobs so frequently? Why did he sever contact with nearly everyone who once knew him? The past begins to peel back like faded wallpaper, revealing something darker underneath, something nobody suspected. Yet the chilling part isn't the gaps in his history, it's the double life that starts emerging from the shadows. A life built on false names, unexplained travel, connections to towns with unsolved missing person reports eerily similar to Marla's case. The kind of pattern detectives dread, because it suggests not a single tragedy, but a trail. And as the picture sharpens, the voiceover draws us deeper into the tension simmering just beneath the surface of 1985 Florida, into the thick heat that clung to the nights when Marla still walked these streets. The detectives now know this is not just a story of one disappearance, it is the unraveling of a life crafted to deceive, a life hiding right next door, cloaked in routine and small talk and the illusion of harmlessness. But in this first chapter of the investigation's rebirth, before the forensic revelations, before the DNA matches, before the shock that will ripple across the community when the truth is finally exposed, we linger here, in the moment when the past cracks open and the cold case begins to thaw. The moment when detectives hold the rusted locket in gloved hands and understand that after 40 years of silence, the story is finally ready to speak. And with that realization, every person who ever lived on Willow Lane feels the tremor of something huge shifting beneath their memories, something that suggests the mystery that haunted their youth is no longer a ghost, but a living truth clawing its way to the surface. The truth that lived right beside them. The truth wearing a neighbor's smile. The locket sits under the harsh fluorescence of the evidence room, its rusted edges catching faint glimmers of light like a broken promise waking from decades of sleep, and detectives stand around it in a silence thick enough to press on their ribs. It is the kind of object that doesn't just belong to a case file. It belongs to a heartbeat, a family, a vanished life whose shadow never left this investigation. And as they examine it, as gloved fingers trace the faint engraving of MD, the air shifts. Something old breathes. Something buried stirs. Because everyone in that room knows what this means. The cold case that haunted Florida's summer of 1985 has just cracked open with the sound of metal scraping wood after 40 years. The next step is inevitable. Detectives drive to the address tied to the locket, a foreclosed property that looks abandoned even in the harsh Florida sun. Paint peeling, windows clouded, a mailbox stuffed with damp advertisements. The house seems to sag under the weight of secrets, as if it knows something monumental is about to be revealed. And inside, the air is stale, the kind that clings to clothes and refuses to let go. They move room to room, careful, methodical, photographing everything, noting structural changes since the 1980s, trying to map the space as it once was. A living room that once held a recliner and a small television. A bedroom with warped floorboards. A kitchen whose linoleum curls at the edges like burnt paper. But it's the crawl space that matters. The one accessible only by a narrow hatch behind a closet. The one that smells faintly of dust, mold, and old wood. Investigators kneel at its threshold, shining their lights into the low darkness, where cobwebs glisten like thin ice and the floor stretches out in uneven ridges. And as they crawl forward, they see faint marks on the beams, scratches, gouges, pressure indentations. Nothing definitive, but suggestive. Human activity, hidden activity. Activity no landlord ever reported. One detective picks up a small scrap of fabric wedged between boards. Age has eaten the color from it, but the texture hints at cotton from the 1980s. Could be from clothing, could be from a blanket, could be nothing. But in a cold case, nothing is often the beginning of everything. Still, it's the locket that matters most. And its presence in this house forces detectives to re-examine the man who lived here all those years ago. A man who once lived across from Marla Dawn. A man named Richard Hale, a name so common it feels like camouflage. But behind that plain name lies a life built like a puzzle with deliberate missing pieces. Investigators pull his 1985 statement. 3 sentences. Flat. Plain. Practiced. They compare it to his employment history, which suddenly doesn't line up. A construction job he supposedly quit in July 1985. A second job listed in a different county, but with no payroll records. Apartments leased under variations of his name. Addresses that cross state lines for no clear reason. Suddenly everything he ever said is suspect. Suddenly the neighbor remembered vaguely as quiet, kept to himself, feels like a stranger wearing a mask the community willingly accepted. But before they can pursue him, the voiceover pulls us deeper into what Willow Lane looked like in those crucial weeks after Marla disappeared, because understanding the past is the only way to understand the present. The heat in Florida that summer was relentless, thick as syrup. Cicadas screamed through the evenings, neon diner signs buzzed against the dark. And every night, patrol cars cruised slowly through the neighborhood, their headlights sweeping across manicured lawns and dark driveways. Kids weren't allowed outside anymore. Doors were bolted, curtains stayed closed. Families spoke in hushed tones, afraid the wrong word might summon something lurking in the shadows. Evelyn Dawn sat on her front porch for hours each night. Staring down the road her daughter walked on the last night she was seen. She replayed every second of that evening, Marla's smile, her footsteps fading, her promise to return. That tiny, ordinary promise that became a wound she carried in her chest. She begged the sheriff's office to search again, to widen the radius, to interrogate the neighbors a second time. And they did. They asked every household. They knocked on every door, including the one belonging to Richard Hale. His answers were short, his expression unreadable, his house meticulously clean, no red flags, no obvious signs of involvement. He claimed he saw her walk by. That was all. That was enough to move on. In a neighborhood full of chaos, his quiet simplicity blended into the background like wallpaper. But someone should have noticed that his car disappeared for 2 days after the incident. Someone should have questioned why he took sudden weekend trips to towns hours away. Someone should have wondered why he always kept his garage locked, why he left lights on at odd hours, why he never invited anyone inside. But hindsight is cruel. It rearranges truth into a shape that feels obvious only after it's too late to act on it. Back in the present, detectives pull every archived file associated with Hale. Old fingerprints, mugshots from minor infractions, signatures on past leases. They send samples to the lab. They compare the newly uncovered evidence to DNA pulled from Marla's belongings stored in evidence for 40 years. They reconstruct Hale's timeline, where he moved, when he changed jobs, which towns he passed through. And a horrifying pattern starts to take shape. Towns with missing person posters that look too familiar. Towns with unclaimed evidence that resembles the items Marla once owned. Towns with whispers of a man who stayed briefly, then vanished. But this is not where the voiceover pauses. It presses forward, following detectives as they track down neighbors who lived near Hale in the late 80s. Some remember him as polite, a bit stiff. Others remember odd noises at night, hammering, dragging, muffled thuds. One woman recalls a foul smell that lingered for days, which Hale blamed on a dead raccoon under his house. Another recalls catching him watching children at the bus stop, expressionless, standing just inside his doorway. Still, nothing directly tied him to Marla. Nothing crossed the threshold from suspicion to evidence. Until the locket. When detectives present the photo of the locket to Evelyn Dawn, something inside her shatters and rebuilds in the same breath. 40 years of grief folds into a sharp, painful clarity. She confirms it instantly, her daughter's favorite accessory, a birthday gift she treasured. Evelyn's voice trembles, but she remains composed. And the detectives know the weight of this moment, the confirmation that the locket is genuine, the knowledge that it was hidden deliberately, the understanding that this is not just a clue. It is a message left by the past. The sheriff's office calls a press briefing. Cameras flash. Microphones crowd the podium. The lead detective announces the discovery of new evidence in the case. They do not reveal the locket publicly. It's too crucial, too defining. But the community feels the tremor. People who lived on Willow Lane in 1985 stare at their television screens, stunned. Some whisper that they always wondered about that quiet neighbor. Others insist they sensed something off about him, but never had proof. Fear begins to curl around old memories again, stirring that familiar unease they thought they'd buried. Then comes the breakthrough. Forensic analysts confirm trace skin cells preserved inside the locket clasp match Hale's 1985 profile. It's not enough to convict, but it's enough to open the door. Detectives pull every scrap of his old life. They track his movements after he left Willow Lane. They learn he lived under a different alias for a decade. They find records of a second identity tied to a residence in Georgia, where another young woman vanished in 1993. And this is where the story tightens, where the tension grows, because it becomes clear this man built his world out of shadows. A neighbor by day, a secret life after dark. A double existence that nobody suspected, because nobody wanted to believe a quiet man living behind turquoise shutters could harbor darkness deep enough to swallow a life whole. Investigators drive to his last known address, a small rental outside Tallahassee. The property owner remembers him vaguely, paid in cash, left without notice, didn't talk much. In the backyard, beneath a patch of dirt that looks recently disturbed decades ago, cadaver dogs alert. Ground-penetrating radar picks up anomalies. And though the excavation will take days, though the findings will come later in the case, detectives already feel the gravity of it. They are standing on land that may contain more than one secret. Meanwhile, back in Willow Lane, the community watches the investigation with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Evelyn sits at her kitchen table, fingers tracing the edges of an old photograph of Marla, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. She has waited 40 years to understand what happened to her daughter. 40 years to learn why the world suddenly went silent the night Marla disappeared. And now, with the unearthed locket and the resurfaced threads of Hale's double life, she senses the truth is close. So close it feels like breathing in before a storm hits. But even as the case gains momentum, the biggest question remains, why did Hale keep the locket? Why hide it in a house he abandoned decades ago? Was it a trophy? A reminder? A mistake? Or was it something darker? A signature of control? A symbol of ownership over the lives he took? This question hangs over the investigation like a dark cloud, shaping every decision the detectives make. Because the truth, once fully revealed, will not just solve a cold case. It will expose a life built entirely on lies, a neighbor who wore innocence like a costume, a man who walked among them while hiding a darkness that now threatens to spill into the light. And as night falls on Florida once again, the cicadas scream, the streetlights flicker, and Willow Lane feels the past pressing against its windows. The cold case is no longer a whisper, it is a roar. The storm is building, and everyone feels it coming. The unraveling has begun. The rain comes without warning, a sudden Florida downpour slamming against the motel roof like 1,000 fists demanding to be heard. And inside room 12, detectives sift through a lifetime of shadows boxed into a single suitcase left behind by Richard Hale. It was found in a storage unit he abandoned years earlier, a dusty metal container locked with a brittle padlock that snapped under minimal pressure. But what spilled out onto the motel table wasn't clothing, or tools, or anything resembling a normal life. Instead, it was an inventory of secrets. Photographs of strangers, newspaper clippings of missing persons, receipts from towns Hale never admitted visiting, and a small bundle of objects wrapped in a handkerchief stained with age. Objects that feel too personal, too deliberate, too intimate to belong to anyone except his victims. A bracelet, a hair ribbon, a silver button from a denim jacket, objects that whisper stories no one wants to hear. And though none of them are confirmed to be Marla's, every detective in that room feels the same chill crawling up their spines. The suitcase is a map of a life lived in the shadows, a life designed to deceive. One detective spreads out the contents on the bed, separating them by date, by location, by any pattern that might emerge. Another cross-references old case files from the counties listed on the receipts: small towns, rural communities, coastal cities. Places where people vanish quietly, without headlines, without answers. A third detective studies the photos, grainy images of young women, many taken without their knowledge, their faces frozen mid-laugh, mid-conversation, mid-step. None of them look posed. All of them look hunted. Detectives photograph everything, log every detail, and send it to the lab. But as the room fills with the metallic hum of the motel air conditioner and the heavy rhythm of rain, there's something else in the air, a sense that this suitcase is not just evidence. It's a confession written without words. But to understand how deep this darkness goes, we must return again to the summer of 1985, to Willow Lane, when it still felt unbreakable. The week after Marla vanished, tension coiled through the neighborhood like a living thing. Neighbors lingered on porches longer than usual, speaking in tight whispers while glancing over their shoulders. People watched each other more closely, noting small details they never paid attention to before. Who left the house at odd hours, who took unusually long walks, who seemed nervous or evasive when deputies came knocking. Richard Hale became one of those unspoken subjects, not because of anything he did, but because he did so little. While the neighborhood buzzed with theories and fear, he maintained an eerie normalcy, mowing his lawn at the same hour every Sunday, driving to work at dawn, returning just after sunset. But his calmness, his perfect routine, stood out against the chaos. It felt wrong, too smooth, too controlled. Some neighbors described it as cold, others dismissed him entirely, thinking he was simply shy or overwhelmed by the situation. In truth, nobody wanted to look deeper. Nobody wanted to imagine that the danger could be standing on the other side of their driveway with a polite nod and a quiet smile. Back in the present, detectives reviewing Hale's old statements note something odd. His description of Marla's last movements is too precise. He remembered the color of her shirt, the way she held her keys, the song she was humming. But he claimed he only saw her from a distance, only glanced at her briefly. The details don't match. The memory is too sharp, too intimate. It reads like someone remembering his last moment of control over his victim. Yet for decades, nobody saw the contradiction. Now the timeline widens. Detectives track Hale's movements after he left Willow Lane in 1986. He moved through 3 states in 7 years, leaving behind rentals filled with strange repairs, patched floorboards, replaced beams, covered crawl spaces. Landlords recalled he worked irregular hours, returned home exhausted, slept little. A neighbor from his Tallahassee rental remembered seeing him loading heavy boxes into his trunk at midnight. Another recalled hearing him burn something in a metal drum behind the shed, the flames so bright they lit her window. All of these details, meaningless alone, now collide into a chilling mosaic. But the story continues deeper, into the pressure building behind the case as detectives dig into Hale's second identity. The alias he used, David Lawn, was registered in Georgia, tied to a P.O. box and a storage locker rented under a false Social Security number. Inside that locker, detectives found journals, hundreds of pages of disjointed entries written in shaky handwriting. Not confessions, not threats, not even coherent thoughts. Instead, the journals read like fragments of a double mind. Some entries meticulous and methodical, others dark and frenzied, pages filled only with lists of names, dates, and locations. One name appears 3 times across different notebooks. Marla. A shiver runs through the investigation when they realize the significance. These journals stretch across nearly 20 years. Hale wasn't haunted by what he did. He revisited it. Every mark, every memory, every victim. As analysts pore over the writings, detectives return to the house on Willow Lane, now abandoned, its turquoise shutters rotted into soft splinters. They scan the property with new tools, thermal imaging, LiDAR ground analysis, deeper forensic sweeps. Something under the old garden bed triggers an alert. Cadaver dogs pause, bristle, whine. Soil samples come back abnormal, showing traces of chemical compounds used to break down organic matter. The entire property is now a crime scene. For decades, the neighbors believed nothing happened in that house. But now, standing in the humid Florida evening, with police tape fluttering in the breeze and officers marking the soil with numbered flags, it becomes clear that the ground beneath their memories may have held more than they ever imagined. Still, no body is found, no remains. No definitive proof tying Hale to Marla's disappearance. Only the locket, the journals, the timeline, and the razor-thin threads of suspicion weaving into something undeniable. But suspense grows thicker when detectives uncover a new witness, a former co-worker of Hale's from a construction job in 1985. The man, now in his 70s, remembers something he never reported, a deep scratch across Hale's forearm the day after Marla vanished. When asked about it, Hale shrugged it off, claiming he fell into brush-clearing land. But the co-worker remembers more: Hale's stiffness, his discomfort, the way he winced when anyone got too close. He remembers Hale asking odd questions about how fast someone could disappear in the swamps without a trace. The witness never thought much of it. People say strange things sometimes. But now, his memory hits like a hammer. Detectives cross-reference this account with old dispatch logs and realize something chilling. The swampy nature preserve less than 2 miles from Willow Lane was never fully searched in 1985. Search teams focused on the neighborhood and its immediate surroundings, assuming Marla never made it far. But Hale had a car, and that car could have reached the preserve in under 5 minutes. Now the investigation spills onto the marshland, a vast, tangled wilderness of mangroves, cattails, and black water deep enough to swallow anything. The ground is soft, unstable, shifting with each season. Over decades, anything buried here would have sunk deeper and deeper, consumed by mud and time. Still, search teams comb through the area with drones, sonar, and cadaver dogs trained for marsh environments. Nothing emerges except the weight of possibility, thick and suffocating. Meanwhile, Evelyn Dawn watches news coverage from her living room, the sound low, hands trembling as she holds a cup of tea she never drinks. She's lived 4 decades without answers, 4 decades without closure, and now the possibility of learning the truth feels both like salvation and torment. She hopes for answers. She dreads them too, because finding the truth means confronting the reality of what her daughter endured, and the thought alone is enough to crack the fragile shell she's built around her heart. Back at the sheriff's office, the atmosphere feels electric, charged with dread, urgency, and the unstoppable momentum of a case finally breaking open. The evidence board is now a sprawling lattice of photos, maps, documents, and red lines forming a spider web of connections. In the center is Hale's face. Not threatening, not monstrous, but disturbingly normal. A man who hid in plain sight. A man who blended into the background. A man no one suspected until it was too late. Detectives can feel it now, the case reaching its boiling point, the momentum shifting, the truth clawing its way forward. And though they don't yet know how deep Hale's double life goes, they sense they are approaching the heart of the story, the darkest part, the part that reveals why he kept trophies, why he lived under aliases, why he slipped away from every town just before suspicion could form. The rain finally stops. The motel lights flicker. The suitcase of trophies sits sealed in evidence bags. And somewhere in the dim space between past and present, the cold case begins to burn hot enough to scorch the truth into the open. Truth that will shatter everything Willow Lane believed about its quiet neighbor with the turquoise shutters and polite smile. The unraveling is no longer beginning. It is accelerating. The lab report arrives just after sunrise, slid across a conference table still sticky with yesterday's coffee rings, and the room falls silent as the lead detective flips it open. No fanfare, no dramatic music, just paper, ink, and the quiet confirmation that something monstrous has been hiding in plain sight for decades. The suitcase from the storage unit wasn't just a box of strange souvenirs. It was a graveyard compressed into objects. Trace DNA. Partial matches. Patterns the human eye misses, but science doesn't. On 3 of the items, a bracelet, a ribbon, a silver button, the lab isolates profiles tied to unsolved missing person files from the 90s. Different counties, different states. Same signature. Young women vanishing near highways, bus stops, and grocery store parking lots. Cold case had left to gather dust. Now all of them connected by one man's hidden collection. One neighbor. One quiet face in a crowd. The detectives lean in closer, their eyes scanning the pages as if the words might rearrange into a different truth. But they don't. The science is relentless. It draws a line straight through multiple jurisdictions and writes the same name at the center. Richard Hale, a.k.a. David Lorne, a.k.a. the man who watched Marla Dawn walk past his driveway and then never saw her again, according to his carefully rehearsed lie. The sheriff's office calls in the state agency. Soon, the case jumps to a task force level. A bigger room, a larger board, more pins, more lines, more faces staring back from photographs taped to the wall. Florida, Georgia, Alabama, even a case as far as the Carolinas, all with eerie similarities. A single phrase starts circulating in hushed voices among investigators. Serial predator. They don't say serial killer yet, not officially. But the possibility hangs in the air like the static before lightning. Profile experts are brought in, flipping through Hale's journals with clinical detachment. They underline certain sentences, circle phrases, tag dates. They note how he writes about control, about moments of silence, about how some people vanish better than others. In one entry, the ink jerks and trails off mid-sentence, as if his hand couldn't keep up with whatever storm was raging in his head. He doesn't describe crimes. He writes about absence, about erasing people from their own lives. Back on Willow Lane, the news spreads faster than official updates ever could. Group texts, late-night calls, social media threads full of half-truths and wild theories. Some residents from 1985 are now grandparents themselves, staring at their phones in disbelief, realizing the man they waved to all those years ago might have been living a double life, that would freeze their blood. They remember his car, his walk, his eyes. Suddenly, every harmless moment looks suspicious in hindsight. Evelyn sits in the same kitchen where she once packed Marla's school lunches, where she taped missing posters to the table so they wouldn't curl at the edges. Her television glows in the corner, tuned to local news. They show a blurred image of the turquoise shutter house and the phrase "Florida Cold Case" scrolling across the bottom of the screen. She doesn't cry now. The tears feel used up. What's left is a razor-edged focus. She wants answers. She wants names. She wants the truth ripped out of the shadows and dragged beneath the stark white lights of a courtroom. Detectives, meanwhile, focus on a single question. Where is Hale now? They run his aliases through every database they have. The original name, the fake one. Variations in spelling. Old addresses, social security records, medical files. A financial analyst flags something unusual. Small, regular payments under the name David Lawn, tied to a pension from an electrical company in northern Florida. Another hit, a driver's license renewed under that alias 5 years ago. Listed address, a small coastal town 3 hours away, population barely over 2,000. A place known more for bait shops and boat launches than crime. They pull up satellite images of the street. One-story homes, sand-stained driveways. A church on the corner. A faded gas station across from a strip of mangroves. And there, in the middle of it, a white house with a sagging porch and a small, tidy yard. Registered to David Lawn. Age 72. They print his license photo. The man staring back from the glossy square looks like anyone's aging neighbor. Soft lines in his face. White hair. Glasses. Mild expression. But the detectives studying it no longer see harmlessness. They see a mask that has held for 40 years and is finally beginning to crack. They don't rush in. They can't. Not yet. They need more than suspicion and pattern. They need leverage, probable cause, something that forces him out from behind his carefully built routine. Surveillance starts the next morning. An unmarked sedan parks down the street, agents watching as Hale, or Lawn, as his mailbox reads, steps out to fetch his newspaper. He walks slowly, favoring one leg. He waves at a passing jogger. A neighbor calls out a greeting, and he raises his hand in reply. He bends to scratch a dog behind the ears through a chain-link fence. It's banal, almost soothing. It's also deeply, profoundly wrong. Every movement is recorded, every trip to the store, every late-night light flickering on in the front room. They track his schedule: coffee at 6:15 a.m., mail at 10, groceries on Thursdays, church on Sundays. No late-night drives that they can see. No sudden disappearances. To his town, he's just the quiet older man who fixes his own roof and keeps his grass trimmed. Detectives cross-check his routine with old patterns. Then they canvass the neighborhood under the cover of a generic welfare and safety check. They ask if anyone finds him strange. Most say no. A few hesitate. One woman mentions he never talks about his past. Another says her teenage daughter once felt uncomfortable when he stood too close at the mailbox, asking too many questions about which high school she attended. Small details, tiny fractures. The task force decides it's time to move from observation to pressure. They send 2 investigators, one state, one local, to knock on his front door under the pretense of a historical inquiry about Willow Lane. The knock echoes through the house. Silence. Then slow footsteps. The door opens, and there he is, older, softer, but unmistakable. The face from the 1985 statement. The face from the driver's license. The man whose name has been threaded through too many archived files. "Mr. Lawn?" they ask. He blinks once. "That's me. They tilt their badges just enough for him to see. We're following up on a historical missing person case out of Willow Lane, Florida, mid-80s. Would you mind answering a few questions? For an instant, something flickers behind his eyes. A twitch, quick and almost invisible, like a shadow darting behind curtains. Then he smiles, thin and polite. Of course, he says. I barely remember much from back then, but I'll try to help. He lets them in. The house smells of dust and coffee. The walls are bare except for a few generic prints bought from a discount store. No family photos. No personal keepsakes in sight. Everything is neat, controlled, as if the house itself is afraid to reveal anything that might matter. They sit at the table. A recorder clicks on. The questions begin. Where did you live in 1985? Do you remember a young woman named Marla Dawn? You told deputies at the time you saw her walk past your driveway. Is that correct? His answers are smooth at first. He keeps his tone light, occasionally deflecting with a joke about how bad my memory is nowadays. But small cracks appear. He mixes up dates. He claims he moved away from Willow Lane within a couple of months. But records show he stayed nearly a year longer. He insists he never saw Marla again after that night, then later mentions seeing her around town once more. The detectives exchange a glance. Inconsistencies. Not enough to arrest. Enough to tighten the net. When they mention the locket, they watch his face closely. We found an item recently, one says. A locket belonging to Marla. It turned up in a property you once rented north of here. Do you know anything about that? There it is. That flicker again. His jaw stiffens. A muscle jumps in his cheek. His eyes, just for a heartbeat, go flat. A locket? He repeats. No, I don't know anything about that. He clears his throat. His gaze drifts toward the window. For the first time, his composure slips, just enough to show the shape of something coiled beneath it. They don't push further. Not yet. They thank him, stand, shake his hand, leave a card on the table. In case you remember anything else. He smiles again, but this time the expression doesn't reach his eyes. As the door closes behind them, the air seems heavier. The detectives walk back to their car in silence, both feeling the same thing. This man is lying. He's lied for 40 years, and he's been good at it. They listen to the recording that afternoon. They slow it down. They mark every pause, every hesitation, every change in pitch. Patterns emerge. He speeds up when denying knowledge of the locket. His breathing alters when hearing Marla's name. When asked about leaving Willow Lane, he goes quiet for a beat too long, as if choosing carefully between versions of the truth. The task force meets again. They decide on the next move, a formal interview at the sheriff's office under controlled conditions. No more friendly conversation at his kitchen table. This time, they'll bring photos, evidence, the locket, the journals. They'll present him with the threads. See how he reacts when he realizes they've untangled the life he spent decades stitching together. Before they can act, they have to secure everything legally. Warrants, orders, subpoenas. They move fast. A judge, briefed on the depth of the evidence and the potential scale of the crimes, signs off. The clock starts ticking. Meanwhile, the marsh search continues. A small team returns to the nature preserve near Willow Lane, focusing on areas where ground density scans show anomalies. The landscape has changed, swollen with years of storms, overgrowth, and shifting waterways. But something remains. Deep under a swath of dark, still water, sonar picks up a shape that does not belong to the natural world. Smooth, contained, hollow. Divers go in, slicing through murky water thick with silt. Visibility is nearly zero. They move by touch. Fingers brush against twisted roots, discarded trash, buried branches. Then they strike something solid, curved, metallic. They trace its outline. A barrel, sealed. They bring it up slowly, winch creaking under the weight of rust and mud. On shore, investigators stand back, hearts pounding. The barrel is corroded but intact. Chains once wrapped around it have half disintegrated. Someone wanted it to stay down. Someone believed the swamp would keep their secret forever. Under the glare of floodlights, they cut it open. The smell hits first. They don't say what they find inside. Not yet. The contents go straight to the lab, sealed, marked, rushed under priority protocol. But everyone present at that riverside scene knows this. Whatever is inside that barrel will either confirm their worst fear or open a new chapter darker than they imagined. Because if the remains belong to Marla, the cold case finally has a body. And if they don't, then Richard Hale's double life is even larger, even more terrifying than the board of photos and red lines currently stretching across the task force wall. As night settles over Florida, the lights burn late in the sheriff's office. Paper rustles, phones ring, screens glow with data. In a small house by the coast, an old man sits at his kitchen table staring at a business card with a law enforcement seal stamped on it, the edges digging into his palm as his fingers tighten. For the first time in 40 years, he knows they're coming. For the first time in 40 years, the hunter feels the hot breath of being hunted. The call comes in just after noon, slicing through the hum of keyboards and ringing phones with a single clipped sentence from the medical examiner's office. The remains in the barrel do not belong to Marla Dawn. For a heartbeat, the task force room goes completely still. No one breathes. No one speaks. The weight of that single word, no, lands differently on everyone. For Evelyn, when they tell her, it's a jagged kind of relief wrapped in guilt. For the detectives, it's confirmation of a nightmare they were already beginning to suspect. There is more than one victim buried under the life of the man who used to live behind turquoise shutters. The remains belong to a young woman in her 20s, Caucasian, approximate time of death, early 1990s. Cause of death, homicidal violence. There's no identification, no dental records match immediately, no missing person report that slides neatly into place. She becomes a file name, a tentative label on a folder. Jane Doe, barrel recovery. But the lab has more to say. There's trace DNA on a fragment of fabric inside the barrel. It matches one of the partial profiles pulled from the suitcase trophies. Same unknown female, same killer's orbit, same cold, calculated erasure. The task force board grows larger. Another photo is added, this one an artist's reconstruction of Jane Doe's face. She's no longer just bones pulled from rusted metal. She's a person the world forgot. And around her image, the web tightens again around Richard Hale. Reporters latch onto the update within hours. What started as a story about a reopened cold case now mutates into something darker. News crawlers scroll phrases like possible serial offender, Florida cold case cluster, neighbor with a secret life. The community that once whispered about Marla's disappearance now screams about patterns. Talk radio spends entire segments on it. People who lived on Willow Lane in 1985 get calls from journalists asking, "Did you ever suspect him?" Many say no. Some say yes, but only after being reminded what they're supposed to remember. Inside the sheriff's office, the discovery of Jane Doe is leverage. It gives prosecutors something tangible, something they can wrap a charge around. It justifies the move everyone's been waiting for, a full-scale search warrant on Hale's current house. The convoy rolls into his coastal neighborhood just after dawn, unmarked cars fanning out discreetly, uniformed officers hanging back until the papers are signed and the protocol read. Birds scatter from telephone wires as engines idle. Porch lights flicker on as curious neighbors peek through blinds. A knock on his door is no longer polite this time. It's backed by a warrant and a line of silent officers. He answers slower than before. That same mild expression on his face, but there's a stiffness in his shoulders now, a question already forming in his eyes. "Mr. Lorne," the lead detective says, voice steady. "We have a warrant to search your home. You'll need to step outside while we conduct it." He glances past her at the cluster of uniforms, the cruisers, the marked evidence van. For a second, something reptilian flickers across his gaze, calculating, scanning exits, measuring possibilities. Then he steps onto the porch, nods and says, "Of course, I have nothing to hide." They sit him on a folding chair at the edge of his yard, an officer stationed beside him while the search team moves in. Doors open, boxes come out, cabinets empty. Every room is turned over, not with rage, but with methodical precision. Drawers are removed, vents checked, baseboards tapped, attic insulation parted like curtains. They treat the house as a crime scene and a confession, all in one. At first they find nothing, just the life of an elderly man living alone, prescription bottles, canned food, a neatly made bed, a stack of paperback thrillers beside an armchair. But experienced eyes know where secrets live. They measure wall thickness. They note mismatched paint. They follow the hum of wiring that leads nowhere on the floor plan. In the hallway closet, behind a row of coats hanging too perfectly, they find it, a shallow false panel cut into the drywall, edged with wear from repeated removal. They pry it loose. Inside is not a huge trove, not some dramatic hidden vault. Just a small metal tin, the kind used decades ago for cookies or sewing kits. Inside, layered carefully, are old Polaroids, yellowed ticket stubs, and a folded strip of paper with a list of names written in the same trembling handwriting from the journals. Some of those names match missing person reports already pinned to the task force board. Some are new, some are underlined. One more object sits at the bottom of the tin. A key. Old, rust-pocked, tagged with tape that reads in faded ink, ADW. They bag everything. The tin, the photos, the key. And as they carry it out, Hale watches, expression blank, hands folded in his lap as if waiting for a bus. But the officer standing nearest sees the moment his fingers twitch, the tiny tightening of his jaw. It's not the search that rattled him. It's what they found. An unmarked sedan pulls up. Two detectives step out and approach him. "Mr. Lorne," the lead says, "we need you to come with us to answer more questions downtown. This time, you're not free to leave. You're being detained as part of a homicide investigation." They read him his rights. The words float into the bright morning air, stark and cold. He listens, eyes lowered, then nods once. "I understand," he says, "but you're making a mistake. The interrogation room is small, windowless, the kind of space where the walls seem closer with every passing minute. Fluorescent light hums overhead. A camera blinks red in the corner. Hale sits on one side of the metal table, his hands cuffed, the chain soft against the scratched surface. Across from him sit the two detectives, one who knocked on his door days earlier, and another who has spent weeks swimming through his records, his travels, his lies. The recorder clicks on. They start simple, basic questions, confirming identity. Address. Employment history. Each answer is a test. Each hesitation, a data point. They slide his 1985 statement across the table. Ask him to read it. Ask if he stands by it. He squints, reads slowly, lips moving silently over his own words. Saw her walk by, never saw her again. Moved away soon after. When he finishes, he shrugs. "That's what I remembered," he says. "It was a long time ago. I don't see why this is relevant now." They don't answer. Instead, they place a photograph in front of him. The locket, cleaned, lit, undeniable. "Do you recognize this?" one asks. He looks at it longer this time. Too long. No, he says eventually. Can't say I do. It belonged to Marla Dawn, the detective says. It was found in a house you rented after leaving Willow Lane. Your DNA is on the clasp. Her mother confirmed it was her daughter's. He licks his lips, shifts in his chair. I don't know how that could be, he says. Maybe someone left it there. Maybe it was planted. You people are under a lot of pressure to solve these cold cases, aren't you? The deflection is smooth, practiced, but the room's temperature has already dropped. They slide another photo over, this time of the barrel being raised from the swamp. Another of Jane Doe's reconstruction. Another of the suitcase. Another of the cookie tin. They pile up around him, evidence forming a ring. These are all coincidences? The detective asks quietly. Trophies from women who just happened to vanish near places you were living? A locket from the girl who disappeared feet from your driveway, hidden under your floorboards 20 miles away? He doesn't look at the photos now. He stares at the table. I didn't kill anyone, he says. You don't have a body for your girl, do you? You never did. It's a knife twist disguised as a point. The detectives feel it. So will a jury. They know they have to be careful. They know he's right on one thing. Without Marla's remains, without a direct physical link, the cold case still has ice at its core. At the same time, another team cross-references the list from the tin, with missing persons databases spanning 3 states. Names begin to match. One belongs to a college student who vanished during spring break. Another to a waitress who never came home from a late shift. Another has no file at all, no report, no record, no one who officially noticed she wasn't there anymore. The realization lands heavy. Their cold case is not a single puzzle. It's one tile in a much larger mosaic of disappearance. Back home, Evelyn gets a call that the remains recovered from the barrel are not her daughter's. She sits on the edge of her bed as the detective explains. Voice gentle, clinical. The relief hits first. A rush of air into lungs that have felt caved in for days. Then comes something stranger, sharper. Guilt for being relieved when another mother's child has been found in pieces, unnamed. She whispers a thank you, hangs up the phone, and stares at the ceiling. She had prepared herself to mourn again. Now she's back where she started, stuck in the hallway between hope and certainty, haunted by an empty space at the dinner table that no report can fill. In the interrogation room, the questions turn surgical. They point out inconsistencies in his stories. They read passages from his journals aloud, lines about silencing noise, about people who wander too close, about locking memories in steel and water. His eyes flash when they mention steel, water, Willow Lane. You write about a girl, the detective says. Doesn't say her name. Says she walked into your life like a song you didn't invite. Says she was too bright for how dark it was inside the house. What does that mean, Richard? He gives a thin smile. It means I used to write bad poetry, he says. You can't arrest me for that. No, the detective replies, but we can arrest you for Jane Doe. Silence. The words hang between them. You buried her in a barrel. She continues. You chained it. You dumped it in a swamp you knew no one would search back then, but time caught up with you. Technology caught up with you. Those days are over. He leans back, the cuffs clinking softly. You think you've caught me, he says. You think this is the end of your cold case movie. It's not. You don't know where your girl is, and you never will unless someone like me decides you should. There it is, the mask slipping. For a split second, the neighbor with the polite wave is gone, replaced by something colder, arrogant, utterly certain of its own power. The detectives see it. The camera records it. The jury will feel it. Outside the room, prosecutors meet in a cramped office, files stacked high around them. They know they have enough to move on Jane Doe. DNA threads, concealed remains, patterns of behavior, trophies. They may not have every answer about Marla, but they don't have the luxury of waiting. They can't let him walk back into that quiet coastal neighborhood as if nothing happened. They draft the paperwork, Draft the charges. Draft the announcement that will hit the evening news. Florida cold case breakthrough. Suspected serial predator arrested. Neighbor's double life exposed. But inside the most important mind in the room, the one belonging to the woman who started this fight 40 years ago, there's only one question, looping endlessly. Will this man sitting under a humming fluorescent light finally tell her what happened to her daughter? Or will he carry that truth with him into whatever comes next? The recorder clicks off. The detectives gather their files. He sits alone for a moment, staring at the blank wall, lips moving around words nobody hears. Outside in the hallway, the lead detective exhales slowly. "We've got him," someone says. Maybe. Probably. Legally, enough. But in the quiet space just beyond the reach of paperwork and charges, the cold case at the heart of this story still holds something back, like a last breath trapped beneath water, refusing to surface. The storm rolls in just after dusk, dragging a bruise-colored sky over the coast as the task force gathers in the war room for the longest night of the investigation. Thunder rattles the windows, rain knifes against the glass, and in the center of the room sits a single folder. Thin, unremarkable, but heavy enough to shift the weight of 40 years. Inside it is the official arrest warrant for Richard Hale, built on the remains recovered from the barrel, the evidence from the suitcase, and the growing web of victims whose names he tried to bury beneath decades of silence. But as detectives prepare to move forward, another complication cracks across the table like lightning. Hale has stopped talking entirely. Ever since that thin smile in the interrogation room, ever since he hinted that he alone holds the key to what happened to Marla, he's been stone-cold silent. Not a word, not a twitch, not a slip. Lawyers now sit between him and every question, filing motions, demanding delays, requesting psychological evaluations. Stalling, buying time. From behind a pane of reinforced glass, he watches officers scurry across the station like insects, his face unreadable, his expression fixed in the same polite neutrality he wore on Willow Lane in 1985, as if none of this touches him, as if the unraveling of his double life is merely an inconvenience. But the detectives aren't waiting for him to speak. Not tonight. Tonight, they turn their attention to the one clue he didn't have time to hide, the one that may unlock everything he's refused to say, the rusted key found in the tin behind his closet wall. A key labeled with a single letter, W. Maps unfurl across the table, property records pile up, former landlords are called, storage facilities are checked, cross-referenced, traced backward through decades of paperwork that feels like it was deliberately designed to confuse and mislead. Yet something emerges, a lead the size of a fingerprint pressed into wet concrete. In 1991, under the alias David Lawn, Hale rented a small storage unit in a rural town west of Tallahassee. The facility has changed ownership 4 times since then, but the records survive, faded ink on brittle forms. His name was never crossed out. The unit was never officially closed. And the keys tag? The handwritten W matches the initial of the storage facility's old name, Westside Self-Storage. Someone breathes out a low, disbelieving curse. Another detective closes their eyes and whispers, "He left something there." Not forgotten, not abandoned. Left deliberately, as if he knew someday someone might find it. As if he wanted the truth to remain one step away, locked behind steel under a silent roof for as long as the world allowed him to hide. The task force prepares immediately. A convoy assembles. Cars, evidence vans, lights blacked out, rainwater pools on asphalt as boots splash through puddles. The storm overhead scrapes the sky with forks of lightning and throaty rumbles of thunder. It feels like the world is warning them away. But they don't stop. They can't. Too much depends on what lies behind that storage unit door. By the time they reach the facility, the rain has softened to a steady hiss. The place looks deserted. Rows of metal doors hunched beneath flickering security lamps, weeds brushing against chain-link fencing. A single night manager meets them with shaky hands, unlocking the front gate. He insists he never knew, never suspected, never opened that old unit. Most of the older ones were just left alone, he says. Only checked if rent went unpaid. But Hale always paid. Always. The unit sits at the far end of the row, door streaked with rust, lock fused from years of humidity and neglect. The key slides in. The old mechanism groans. Something inside the tumblers shifts reluctantly, like bones cracking after decades of stillness. The padlock drops open. No one moves at first. They all feel it. The same pressure that weighed on Willow Lane the night Marla vanished. A threshold. A moment that divides a story into before and after. Finally, the lead detective grips the handle and lifts the door. It screeches upward. Inside is darkness. A cold, stale, suffocating darkness that seems to spill outward like ink. Flashlights click on. The beams sweep across the space, revealing dust motes swirling in damp air. Boxes, plastic bins, a tarp-covered object in the corner, a faint metallic smell that makes someone's stomach turn. And near the back, barely visible under layers of dust, lies a wooden trunk, old, reinforced, its metal clasps tarnished with age. But before anyone reaches it, the flashlights catch something else. A wall of photographs taped to the metal siding. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Each one yellowed and curling at the corners. Each one showing a different face. Women. Young. Older. Some smiling at cameras they didn't know were watching. Some caught mid-walk, mid-laugh, mid-life. No patterns except one. Each retouteur. A hush falls over the unit. Even the storm outside seems to fade. An investigator whispers, "Dear God." Another steps backward, breath shuddering. The wall is not a collection. It's an archive. A record of years spent hunting, watching, waiting. In the center of the wall is a single photo with a name written beneath it in cramped handwriting. Marla. The image is grainy, taken from across the street. She's walking, head turned slightly, sunlight catching her hair in a bright flare that makes her look almost unreal. It might have been taken that same summer, or earlier, or days before she vanished. No one can tell, but the implication is unmistakable. He watched her long before she disappeared. They don't touch the wall yet. They turn instead to the wooden trunk. Bolt cutters slice through the rusted clasps. A detective's gloved hands lift the lid. The smell that escapes is the kind that doesn't belong in the world of the living. Rot, mildew, the sour scent of something sealed too long. Inside lie layers of objects, each wrapped in old towels, plastic, newspaper, carefully preserved. Trophies, yes, but more than that. Artifacts of a double life. A blood-stained piece of rope, a small tape recorder, a leather-bound notebook with entries written in a different handwriting than the ones found earlier, neater, almost formal, as if these were the thoughts he reserved for himself alone. And at the bottom, beneath a final layer of plastic, something small and heartbreaking. A single sandal. Women's size. Faded teal straps. The same product line sold in Florida discount stores in 1985. Detectives don't need confirmation. They feel the truth in the room like a pulse. Marla's mother always said her daughter wore sandals that night. One pair missing from her room, never recovered. When the sandal is lifted, something metallic clinks beneath it. Another key, smaller, silver, clean despite years of storage. Tag marked not with an initial this time, but with a single word scratched into the metal tape. Pond. A detective whispers, "Oh God, he left us a map." But is it a map to Marla, or another victim entirely? Before anyone can process what this means, a radio crackles to life. The officer watching Hale back at the station reports something strange. He's pacing his holding cell, restless, agitated, muttering under his breath. He keeps repeating the same phrase over and over. "They're not supposed to find her. They're not supposed to find her." The same officer adds, voice tight. He's smiling. Back in the storage unit, the investigators stare at the key in silence. A storm gust slams into the metal structure, rattling it like a warning. The rain outside intensifies until it sounds like static on a radio. The task force doesn't wait. They split into 2 teams. One returns everything into evidence bags and seals the storage unit. The other heads straight for the location implied by the key, an old retention pond listed on historical maps from the 80s, now mostly dried, partly filled, and overgrown after years of neglect. It's after midnight when they arrive. Flashlights cut through tall grass whipping in the wind. Mud sucks at their boots. The pond is a shallow depression ringed by cattails and scattered debris. The water that remains is dark, stagnant, barely reflective under the storm-slashed sky. The team fans out, marking unusual soil patches, disturbed vegetation, buried metal. Drones are launched overhead. Ground-penetrating radar flickers with signals. Cadaver dogs pull hard on their leashes toward the northern edge, where the ground is softest. Then one of the dogs freezes, growls, signals. The breath leaves the team in a collective exhale. They begin digging. The rain pounds harder. Mud splashes. Tools clang. With every inch turned, the air grows colder, thicker, as if the earth itself knows what it's about to reveal. Minutes pass. Then an investigator's shovel hits something solid. Not metal, not stone, something softer, something that yields. The digging slows, becomes careful, deliberate. And then fabric, faded, torn, undeniably human-shaped. Someone shouts for the medical examiner. Someone else radios the sheriff's office. But the team at the site knows before any official steps foot there. They've found remains. The storm rages overhead as plastic tarps are stretched, lights are raised, and the excavation becomes a scene pulled from a nightmare. Gloved hands brushing away decades of mud, revealing bone, cloth, fragments of objects meant to survive only long enough to disappear. Back at the station, Hale stops pacing. He sits calmly on the bench, hands folded, smiling. The officer outside his cell shivers without knowing why. Because somewhere in the mud and rain, as the team recovers a small metallic object, half buried near the remains, a bracelet engraved with initials MD. The truth finally breaches the surface. Not fully, not cleanly, but enough. Enough to confirm their deepest fear. Enough to break a mother's last fragile hope. Enough to turn a cold case into a storm 4 decades in the making. And enough to prove, beyond any doubt, that the quiet neighbor with the turquoise shutters did more than watch. He waited. He planned. He hid. And now, piece by piece, inch by inch, the earth is giving him up. The morning the lab finishes its work, the sky over Florida is a washed-out gray, the kind of color that turns everything flat and distant, and inside a small fluorescent-lit office, a forensic pathologist signs her name on a single devastating line. The remains from the pond are no longer labeled as an unknown set of bones excavated from the mud. They belong to a person, to a daughter, to a girl whose face has been frozen in a missing poster for 40 years. The bracelet engraved MD isn't just a coincidence. It's corroboration. Dental comparisons, old x-rays from a long-retired dentist, healed fractures, genetic confirmation from her mother's DNA, each piece aligning until there's no doubt left. The cold case file that sat unsolved for decades now has an answer stamped across it in bold, clinical language. Identity. Marla Dawn. Homicide. The call to the task force is brief, professional, stripped of emotion by necessity. But when the lead detective hears the name, her throat tightens, and for a moment she has to turn away from the evidence board. from the photos, from the web of strings that have consumed every waking hour for months. She presses a hand against the wall, breath catching in the same quiet grief that has lived in Evelyn's house since 1985. The question that haunted every investigator who ever touched this file is no longer if Marla is dead. It's how they make that truth matter in court. 2 officers drive to Evelyn's house. They don't use sirens. They park away from the curb, shoulders squared, hats in hand. She opens the door before they knock, because she's spent years reading bad news in the lines of people's faces, and she already knows. Her eyes flick from one uniform to the other, then to the folder in the detective's hand. She doesn't cry when they say the words. She sits down, carefully, like she's afraid the floor might give out. Her hands tremble in her lap. The world shrinks to a few inches of space between her and the photo they place gently on the coffee table. An image of the bracelet, cleaned, glinting under lab lights, the same piece she fastened around her daughter's wrist on a birthday that now feels like it belonged to another lifetime. She's coming home, Evelyn says quietly, voice raw. But not how I prayed she would. The detective nods, helpless against the vastness of that grief. They talk about arrangements, next steps, the possibility of a proper burial. Evelyn listens, eyes fixed on the photo. When they stand to leave, she asks one question, just one, and it slices through both of them like glass. Did she suffer? The detective answers as gently and truthfully as she can. We don't know everything yet, she says, but we know she wasn't forgotten, and we are going to stand for her in that courtroom. Back at the sheriff's office, a red string stretches from Marla's photo to a new image pinned to the board. The pond under floodlights, tarps billowing, investigators bent low in the rain. The case title on the whiteboard changes with the squeak of a marker. Unsolved disappearance crossed out, replaced with homicide, charged. A small, grim ritual of law enforcement, acknowledgement that the mystery has shifted shape. The unknown is no longer where Marla is. It's what exactly happened in those final hours, and why a man who once waved to his neighbors felt entitled to erase a life like chalk from a sidewalk. In the interview suite, Richard Hale sits across from his attorney, the room buzzing faintly with the low hum of aging lights. He's been officially informed. He's now charged with the murder of Marla Dawn on top of the counts tied to the barrel, the Jane Doe, the concealed remains. When they say her name, his eyes flicker, just briefly, as if someone tugged on a thread inside him. Then the expression settles back into that annoying, infuriating calm. They found her, the detective says, placing a photograph on the table. Not of bones, not of the excavation, just the pond, the muddy depression, the tape. You put her there. You kept that key for 40 years. Why? His lawyer cuts in, a raised hand, a tight warning. No statement, no response. Not now. But Hale speaks anyway, voice soft. I didn't put anyone anywhere, he says. You people like to think the ground tells you the truth. It doesn't. Dirt just covers what you want to forget. It isn't a confession, it's a philosophy. And it chills the room more than any direct admission could. As the legal machinery grinds into motion, the forensic teams reconstruct what they can from the pond. The way the remains were positioned suggests deliberate burial, not random dumping. The presence of fibers matching the rope from the trunk ties one scene to another. Microscopic traces match soil found under the foundation of the Willow Lane house from 1985, indicating Marla wasn't killed at the pond. She was moved, handled, hidden. The medical examiner can't say exactly how she died. Time and decay have stolen some answers. But there are signs of ligature pressure on bone, fractures inconsistent with accidental injury, the echo of violence written into what's left of her. Piece by piece, a brutal timeline emerges behind closed doors. Marla leaves her house that summer night. She walks past his driveway. Somewhere in the gap between her front porch light and the point where the street disappears behind hedges, he intercepts her. Maybe he calls her name. Maybe he offers a ride. Maybe he blocks her path with that small-town familiarity that feels safe until it isn't. He gets her inside his house. The turquoise shutters shut. The curtains close. And in that ordinary living room, beneath that unremarkable roof, the timeline of her life fractures. Prosecutors pin their strategy on what they can prove, not what they imagine. They have the locket under his floor, the sandal in his trunk, the bracelet by her remains. His DNA on her jewelry. Journals that map an obsession with control. A storage unit shrine with her photo at its center. Keys marked like a twisted scavenger hunt. W. Pond. Patterns etched across states and years. It's not one suspicious moment. It's a pattern of predation. They know he might never tell them what he said to her, what she answered, how long she was alive after the front door closed. But in court, they don't need his memory. They need the story the evidence tells without him. Still, they try one more time. In a small conference room away from the harsh fluorescent interrogation lights, a prosecutor sits across from Hale, his attorney beside him. The offer is straightforward, laid out in measured tones. Cooperation in locating other victims in exchange for removing the death penalty from the table. Full disclosure, charts, maps, dates, names, every key, every barrel, every grave. Hale listens, expression almost amused. "So you're saying I get to live if I help you clean up?" he says, voice almost conversational. "You think that's justice?" The prosecutor's jaw tightens. "I'm saying this is your only chance to have any say in how this ends." She replies, "We already have enough to put you away for the rest of your life. You know that. This is about giving families answers, about not leaving them where Evelyn was for 40 years. He leans back, chains clinking softly. "Evelyn," he repeats, tasting the name. "She's still in that house, isn't she?" Porch light on. The prosecutor doesn't answer. Every piece of information is a currency she refuses to spend on him. He smiles faintly. "You'll do this without me," he says. "You'll dig and search and guess. And maybe you'll find more bones. Maybe you won't. Either way, you've already decided who I am. So why should I help you write your story?" The lawyer ends the meeting there. No deal, no exchange, no closure for the nameless faces on the storage unit wall. Outside the walls of law and evidence, the story plays out in living rooms and phones and crowded comment sections. News anchors repeat the headline with somber faces. "Florida, 1985 cold case solved. Neighbor's secret double life uncovered." Old footage of Willow Lane appears on screen, washed in retro grain. Photos of a young Marla flash beside Hale's mugshot. Pundits debate how a man like him slips through systems, how many red flags were missed, how many neighbors in how many towns are living next to someone with a life they never see. On Willow Lane, there's a vigil. Candles line the sidewalk where she once walked. People who haven't lived there in years return. Older now, holding small plastic cups of wax and flame. Someone ties a ribbon around the rusted mailbox at the old turquoise shutter house. Someone else tapes Marla's picture to a light pole, not as a plea this time, but as a memorial. Evelyn stands at the edge of the crowd, hands cupped around a candle that keeps flickering in the breeze. The detective joins her, not as an official presence, but as a human one. They don't talk much. There are no speeches big enough for this. When the crowd hums a hymn, Evelyn looks down the street, at the bend in the road where she last saw her daughter's silhouette disappear into warm night. "I thought I'd feel different," she murmurs, mostly to herself, knowing where she is, knowing he didn't just make her vanish. The detective glances at her, the candlelight throwing soft shadows across a face worn by decades. "How do you feel?" she asks quietly. Evelyn thinks for a moment. "Like the door is half open," she says. "I can see the room, but not everything inside it." That half-open door is what the trial will be about. Prosecutors assemble timelines, charts, reconstructed scenes. They rehearse how to walk a jury through 40 years in a few weeks. Willow Lane, the pond, the storage unit, the journals, the suitcase, the barrel, the double identity. Expert witnesses line up. Forensic pathologists, DNA analysts, behavioral profilers, missing person investigators from other states. Each one will step into the spotlight for a few minutes to offer a fragment of the mosaic. Hale, for his part, remains an enigma. In his cell, he is quiet. He reads. He eats. He occasionally hums under his breath. Guards say he's polite, never causing trouble, never raising his voice. If you didn't know who he was, you'd think he was just another aging inmate waiting for a bureaucratic process to grind forward. But every now and then, a guard hears him talk in his sleep, short, clipped phrases, half-formed sentences. Too loud, too bright. Back in the house. No more noise. They log it, but dreams aren't evidence. Nightmares don't get cross-examined. As jury summonses begin to land in mailboxes across the county, the story narrows toward the courthouse, toward a room where 12 strangers will be asked to decide what kind of man sat behind those turquoise shutters and how much his secrets are worth. The investigators know they won't be able to answer every question. Murders this old, buried this long, keep some things for themselves. There won't be a play-by-play of that night. No security footage, no confession tape where he breaks down and tells them he's sorry. But they will have bones pulled from mud, jewelry that refused to rot, words he couldn't resist writing down in private, and a trail of keys leading from one hidden place to another.